Shalom and welcome to another episode of Nobody Watching. They say there are 3 things people should never discuss because doing so only leads to fighting and misery. They are politics, money, and religion. These aren't the only things that cause fighting and misery, of course, but these seem to be the big 3. Why? Probably because people are super possessive of their belief systems, and anything that runs counter to our beliefs or makes us question whatever faith we have or shifts our moral roadmap has the ability to sow seeds of doubt about what we've dedicated our lives to, and there lies the ways of wanton depravity. We just can't seem to help ourselves. Needless to say, because these are generally seen as forbidden topics, we can't wait to talk about them. In fact, if you listen, it seems all we talk about these days are politics, money, and religion. And disease. But I digress. Let's take God, for example. The simple act of mentioning God can set off a sea of emotions depending on who you are. Joy and a sense of kinship, on alert in case you need to jump in to defend your belief system or your particular deity. It goes on, and it makes perfect sense. If God sets your moral compass, if you're going to put all of your faith and hope into an all-powerful, all-knowing, benevolent, and occasionally vengeful being, you want that being to be pretty close to the perfection you project upon them. The thing is, people seem to give God a buy on perfection when things go sideways because, as they would explain it, God's vast master plan is so complex, it is beyond our comprehension, beyond reproach, and to question that plan and the aforementioned perfection is heresy. God don't make mistakes. Enter this guy. Not just this guy, mind you. There are many others of his ilk who say they carry with them messages from God, that God speaks to them directly, and while they are merely the lowly messengers of the complex master plan, they say their job is to spread God's word, God's perfect message, so that all may hear and obey, and make healthy donations. On October 21, 2020, it was widely reported that Pat Robertson said God told him Donald Trump will win the election on November 3rd, and that 5 years later in 2025, an asteroid will hit the Earth, which may bring an end to all life on the planet. Send money. Pat Robertson has made a career out of sharing the intimate details of his conversations with the Lord, and as I said, Mr. Robertson is not the only person spewing this stuff, but he makes for a great case study as the same questions come to my mind no matter which of the members of God's press corps are doing the talking. So let's deal with the information as we have it. Mr. Pat says God told him whatever. As we break this down, the first question is, did God actually tell him anything? Faith is based on the notion that you will adhere to a belief system without a need for physical, tangible proof. So if you default to innocence for all parties, you have to say yes. God spoke to Mr. Pat and told him these things. Next question. Since whatever God told Mr. Pat appears to be wrong, at least 50% so far, who made the error? Can't be God. God is perfect, right? So we must consider the notion that Mr. Pat flubbed it up. Now, maybe that's just me, but I think if I were on God's Rolodex as someone he would be talking to on the regular, I would make darn sure I was getting that message right. A good pen and a stack of Post-it notes are a minimum requirement. Otherwise, history is fraught with examples where bad messaging screwed things up, and those messages are coming from lesser beings than God. And I would hope on the other side that although probably extremely busy, God would want to make sure the message was received properly. I mean, if I were God and for some reason I went back to Pat for some message sharing, knowing his past history, I would have him write it down and repeat it back to me twice, just to make double sure everything was cool. Maybe when you're perfect, you're not so meticulous. Either way, it appears that the clarification step was missed somehow, and you can't really blame Mr. Pat. I mean, think of any boss-subordinate relationship. The worker bee doesn't want to appear to be off their game in front of the boss, so they say they got it. Now what? The error was made. God's perfect message is wrong, and his messenger is on TV. Mr. Pat has 2 options: correct himself or double down. Which way does he go? In subsequent appearances, he doubles down and insists these are the words of God. God don't make mistakes. Send money. At this point, God must be kind of pissed because he also must realize that going back to Mr. Pat to carry his message might have been a mistake. Whoops. Sorry. God don't make mistakes. We can only surmise at this point then that assuming innocence on all sides, that God gave Mr. Pat the wrong information on purpose, knowing that Mr. Pat would double down because it is all part of the vast and complex master plan we're not capable of understanding. That makes everything right. Or does it? I guess what I'm saying is that there is wisdom in the notion that if you want the facts as they are, you need to get them from the source. The moment you share information through other sources, your message is altered, interpreted, paraphrased, edited, reworked, spiced up, whatever. It changes and dilutes the message from the source. The question then is, why do Mr. Pat and his friends get such an audience? Why are they so wealthy and have so many eager and loyal followers if they can't seem to get the messaging right? Who do you believe? Where do you put your faith? In the many messengers? See you next time.